Hey everybody, it's Stitch 1993 and welcome back to another What Was episode where I talk about shows that either were underrated or I just think don't get talked about as much anymore. And today we're talking about a pretty interesting show in my opinion. It's Mr. Henry's Wild and Wacky World. Now this was interesting to me mainly for the research part, but also just the show in general as we'll go into. So it aired as a set of VHS and DVD releases. Apparently, from what I saw online, the first VHS and DVD came out around June of 2004, and there were 13 episodes, each about 30 minutes long. And the way to best describe the show was a Christian version of Pee-wee's Playhouse mixed with a bit of Crashbox, and I'll get into both of those in a minute. So it was produced by the Tommy Nelson Corporation. They're a Christian publishing company that's been around for, based on their profile here on their own website, they've been around for hundreds of years apparently. And they were acquired by the HarperCollins company in 2012. But they are like one of the major publishers for just Christian media in general. If you go to like any sort of Christian bookstore, especially in the like children's section, they're most likely the ones that are going to have their logo on the back there. It's Thomas Nelson now, but on like a lot of their kid stuff, it's Tommy Nelson. So the show, from what I found, has very little information online about it. And I tried doing a bunch of research on this. I could find an IMDb page for the show and then a Wikipedia page for Frank E. Peretti, who is the host of the show. He plays Mr. Henry. So we'll go into Frank first. So Frank, born 1951 in Canada, but grew up here in the United States, is mainly known as a Christian fiction author. Apparently he's a New York Times best-selling author. Most of his books are kind of based on like supernatural stuff with a emphasis on Christianity. What's interesting is like even on his Wikipedia page, it's like one sentence that mentions this show. It like doesn't even go into him being on the show or anything. It's just like, oh yeah, by the way, he did DVDs, VHSs, and some CDs of this series. That's it. The show itself doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Really doesn't have much about it. If you Google it, all you're going to find is images of the show, both the VHSs and the DVDs, and some links to people have uploaded all the episodes online. There being 13 episodes in total, just kind of going over basic life lessons that can be taught through the Bible. And while this show is a Christian show, I would call it kind of a light Christian show because really only a portion of the show is about stories from the Bible. The rest of it is just kind of Frank as Mr. Henry just being a kooky inventor, and his interaction with the puppets, which is why I really got into the show growing up. You had four main puppets. You had Bubbles the fish. You had Sir Cutius, which was this knight/robot kind of character. You had Miss Harriet, which was a moose, just like, taxidermy moose head with a little hat on and eyelashes. And Jacques the shark, which was, again, a taxidermied shark, and his like little mouth was carved out so that his mouth could move when he's talking. That was always my favorite part, was just him interacting with the puppets, or like for parts of each episode, it would just be the puppets talking to each other, kind of riffing, kind of just doing their own thing. Sometimes they'd have like their own like little B-plot story to go along with whatever the actual theme of the show was. On their IMDb page, not much information to go off there either. The main two directors were Steve Angus and Steve Gilreath. Steve Angus is like probably the one that has the most information about him. He's He was also a producer of the show, and his other credits include producing a lot of the riff tracks shows, primarily everything between like the late 2000s to late 2010s, including one that I actually own on DVD, which is Riff Tracks Live Christmas Shorts Extravaganza, that includes them just riffing on a bunch of old Christmas shorts and commercials and stuff, and has a guest appearance by Weird Al Yankovic. Other than that, he's only directed, Mr. Henry's Wild World, Steve Gilrath. Looks like he helped produce another Christian show called Bible Man, and maybe some like music videos. But the rest of it is just him directing the Bible Man show and Mr. Henry. Then we get into cast. We've got Rob Killen, who voiced Circudius. He has a pretty decent-ish credits on IMDb. He was a Muppet performer on The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland and Muppets from Space. And then he helped write for a show called Wish-A-Roo Park, which I've never heard of. Then we've got Scott Moore, who voiced Jacques the Shark. He's got this, and he voiced somebody in a video game called Amped 3. We've got, of course, Frank Peretti. Outside of the books, he doesn't really have anything on his IMDb page either, outside of trailers for some of the movies that were based off of his books. So he's credited as the writer on those. Jeff Durham, who was also a producer on the show, was one of the human characters that would show up on the show. He was a delivery guy. We've got Ed May, who was the voice and puppeteer of Bubbles. He again also has credits on being a Muppet performer from Muppets in Space, as well as being a writer on a show called The Bob and Angus Show. And then we've got Gabriel Chaffin for Miss Harriet, and literally the only credit for Gabriel Chaffin is this show, and that's with a lot of the cast and producers and such, is just this show. Yeah, every episode it would be Mr. Henry and it was a one set, really. It was just his workshop, which looks like it was once a garage, turned into this kind of, this is more on the PB Playhouse side, just kind of this, kooky kind of set, with lots of gears and gadgets and stuff. And he would talk about, Christian life lessons that you've probably heard from a lot of shows. Like love, fear, patience, all those type of virtues. And he always would have some sort of like invention he was trying to work on that kind of went along with that lesson. There would be a part where he would, tell a story from the Bible that was animated in, want to say, looks kind of like early Flash animation. It's really rigid. And what was interesting is like it doesn't tell the story so straight. It like most of the time from what I saw, each of these little stories was like told as if it were like being produced as its own like movie. So like characters would flub their lines, and like somebody would have to like stop the episode and yell action or give them scripts or give them advice, and then they go back into the story. They would eventually tell the full biblical story, but there was that little extra added humor into it. And then the other portions of the show, there's always be a musical portion of the show, because Frank Peretti did play banjo. So he was part of a bluegrass band called Northern Cross. And so he would play his banjo along with, I'm not sure if that was the band in the show or if it was a different band. But he'd always, do a song, again, based on whatever theme the episode was on. And then there'd always be these little like portions of the show that would be more on the Crash Box side. Now, I'm not really going to go into Crashbox here. That is going to be a whole episode on its own because I love that show. But these portions of the show really were outside of the puppets were one of the reasons why I really enjoyed watching the show, because they were like little mind puzzles that kind of went along with the story being told or the theme being told, kind of like I Spy and little, other sort of little mind puzzle sort of visual things to play. Usually will last no longer than like a minute and a half. And yeah, that was pretty much it. It went on for just 13 episodes. They got both VHS and DVD releases, and I believe all the episodes are uploaded here on YouTube for you to check them out. I really enjoyed this show. It's actually aged pretty well. When I was going back to rewatch episodes to capture footage, I was really hesitant. I was like, oh man, I know some of these shows have not aged well at all, just either because I'm not a kid anymore, or sometimes they'll kind of get just a bit too hyper focused on one portion of a story and like ignore everything else, or they really will talk down to the audience. And I didn't feel that way here. Frank really plays this character not so much like Pee Wee Herman, but more kind of like the professor from Flubber mixed with Mr. Rogers and his personality. They're pretty good, down-to-earth type of talking. He has kind of a twang to his voice, so I'm not sure if he's trying to be some sort of like trying to take on some sort of like southern accent there, but it was a really interesting voice that kept my attention even when I was adult rewatching it. And yeah, I definitely would recommend checking the episodes out if you got some time on YouTube. And this is the part of the show where I ask, have you ever heard this show? Did you grow up with Mr. Henry's Wild and Wacky World? Or did you at least... the show got advertised a bunch when it came out. Like pretty much any like Christian media at the time, like especially kids Christian media, would have an ad for this show. VeggieTales, Hermie, bunch of Max Lucado's stuff. They always would include an ad for this show. So it was kind of surprising when looking this show up. It really didn't have much information on it going behind the scenes there. So did you at least remember seeing the ads or seeing the VHSs and DVDs in like your local Christian bookstore? And if this is your first time hearing about this show from what I've shown you, is it something that you would be interested in checking out or not? I'd love to hear your opinions either way down in the comments. And until next time, thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.